What's up, wrestling fans, trading card collectors? Another episode of Wrestlers Live. Almost didn't make it today. A little under the weather, not feeling the, hey, the show must go on. So here we are. And I wanted to just an episode talking about some new notes seen on social media, stuff I've seen posted from card companies, and obviously kind of the headline on the thumbnail, you know what's coming. So welcome everyone watching. And if you got any questions, comments, throw something in the chat. It could have something to do with what we're talking. It could be something just totally all. It doesn't matter. We'll get to it. Thanks for everybody for stopping by. If you're watching this on the archives of the channel, leave a comment below what you think about any of these topics. So let's just go ahead and get into the first one. We're not wasting any more time here. This is huge. As most of you probably know, or if not, Leaf Metal Legends Wrestling is coming, and Leaf finally has the rights to The Rock. Now, let's look at these cards. What's interesting is the reaction that I saw to these. A lot of people were like, "Oh, this is great. This rules," But these same time images were used on previous Topps cards, or maybe even some Panini cards, a few of them here and there. And people did not really care for the images. They wanted that Attitude Era Rock. So it was interesting to see some people kind of flip-flop their positions on the images used on these. As far as the designs go, so we've got that one. Here's a blue. So I'm guessing these are going to be different parallels. I think they're okay. The images, just okay. But that's not the point. The point is The Rock is finally signed. I don't know how Leaf pulled this off. We can start by, talking about how much is this going to cost? What products is this going to be in? That's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Sticker autos. We all know wrestling card collectors hate I don't know that sports card collectors or like non-sport fans, I don't know if they hate sticker autos as much as wrestling card collectors do, but wrestling card collectors seem to just hate sticker autos, which understandably so. That being said, is that even going to matter with this card? We've been wanting a Rock auto for years now. So, what's the print run of these going to be, even though they are sticker? Now, how are they getting around this without having the WWE thing? Using Dwayne Johnson instead of The Rock, because he's signing as himself. So clearly that's how they're scooting around that WWE trademark character, whatever. But it's going to be interesting to see pricing. What are these going to be priced at? I'm guessing they're going to be very expensive. Are they going to be in packs? Are they going to be one-offs? Like, how Leaf will sometimes put a product up and you can just buy that single product as, you're buying this card, you have it, and they randomly pull it. You have a chance of getting the base auto, the 1-of-1, the printing plate, whatever. But it's going to be interesting to see how they do that pricing. And then kind of the reaction. I've talked about this, and we'll talk about maybe a little bit later in the show, some of the reaction stuff I've seen. We often always see that the wrestling, I don't want to say the wrestling card community, but I'll say that it just seems like certain sectors of the wrestling card community, they hype up these things, oh, this is an investment. You're going to want to get this. You don't want to miss out on this. And then when it comes to actually the product being released and people actually pay for it, that like they sit there, whether that's on the secondary market or whether it's from a company themselves like this. So will these be priced too high in the current economic state and the state of the hobby that we're in for collectors? Does that even matter because it's The Rock? And we really haven't even seen very many Dwayne Johnson signatures. So that's something else cool. I'm slightly interested in owning one of these just because of the, I'll just call it a rarity. There's probably not going to be that many of them signed. We'll see. And I'm interested to see where the price goes on this, because will it go on the secondary market for, triple what it initially jumped at, which is what a lot of Leaf products do. We saw the Pete Weber, Who Do You Think You Are? I Am inscription card. I think that sold, I don't remember what those sold for initially, but I remember shortly after on the secondary market, they were like 2 or 3 times the amount that they were. So what does this do? The other thing is, what does this do to the Comic Images autos? What does this do to any other certified autographs that he has floating out there? Does it water those down? I think I've spoke about that before, of if Rock ever had another autograph out, what does that do to saturation of the market? We've seen that with Panini products, which I don't know if we'll get into, but how many golds can you have, and at what point does the gold become a little less relevant because there's so many of them out there? Same thing with this auto. But ZA champion, of course, welcome. We can always count on you to be in here. And we've got the Chucker. Chuckster says he's disappointed that he didn't sign it as The Rock, even though it's The Rock's image. And like I said, I think they've got to, this is one of those weird leaf things where they can scoot around copyright and trademarks and still get you a product you want. So I agree with you. I think the biggest complaint for people on this is going to be the images used and the sticker auto instead of on card, but it is what it is. Miami Mark is back. Welcome. Again, if you guys have questions, comments, anything, drop them in there, drop them below if you're watching this on the archives, and get to them when I can. So, I think this is cool. It's something new, something we haven't seen from The Rock in a long time, him signing. So, that's big news for wrestling, not only just wrestling card collectors, but Leaf's been on a roll putting out non-sport and different types of cards. And while they all are sticker autos, there seems to be, I'm not going to call it a groundswell of interest, but there's a little bit more popularity around some of these, I think, than there used to be. So, speaking of kind of non-sport stars and wrestling and how that ties into cards, I have another surprise for you, and I don't know that many people know about this. Give me 1 minute to pull this up here. And this was actually brought to my attention by Doug Driesel Jr., who is Green Circle, y'all, or Green Circle Trading. I remember on Instagram, on I think he has a YouTube channel, on Twitter for sure, X, whatever. But definitely check him out. But this is what he brought to my attention. Andre the Giant fans, if we can get this ad out of here of this dog running. So this is going to be in one of the mat sets coming up. And I think this is a pretty big thing for Andre the Giant collectors. This is something you could add to your PC. You don't have to know anything about Magic the Gathering to purchase this card if you're an Andre the collector, or if you just think this is a cool card and you want to add to your collection. I think it's awesome. We were just talking about Rock, how it's Dwayne Johnson, and it's an image that maybe some people won't like as much. Well, here we have an Andre card that's a sketch type card, art card, if you will. And it doesn't really fit into wrestling, but I guarantee you there's going to be Andre collectors out there that want to pick this up. Doug brought this to my attention. I haven't really dug deep into it as far as pricing goes, market, like secondary market. Is this even out yet? I don't know. He just sent this to me, and I thought this whole show that we're doing, this episode, is about reacting to news and stuff that's coming out and, comments, stuff like that. So I really wanted to share this one for anybody that may be interested in it. Again, you don't have to know anything about Magic to be into this. Obviously, if you just like Andre, go check it out. So moving on to that. And let me pull this up here. Nice. It's a rare too. Yeah. The Andre the Giant one. And, I don't know if those are going to be serial number paralleled. I know Magic is kind of doing that lately, and I would really like to see Pokemon start doing that. So all these TCG, if they started serial numbering and doing different versions like that, like what we saw the craze with the Lord of the Rings Ring 1/1 card that Post Malone ended up buying. I think if they did that more, they'd get more actual, and crossover too. They'd get more people buying Magic cards to collect them as opposed to just playing them. So good note there. All right, but let's, if I can figure this out. Riveting entertainment here. Okay, so this is a comment that I wanted to get to that was on one of my last YouTube videos. Actually, it was our last live, and it is from Dom 1994-5. I wish you would integrate a little bit more market talk into the Panini stuff. I'm in my 20s collecting WWE wrestlers who are also in their 20s. I don't even want to talk about anything as new as 2019 to 2021 tops. 99% of those cards look awful. And then he also put an edit here. He means more to talk about the younger wrestlers whose top cards are probably Panini cards. I'm going to leave that up and just want to mention that. So I do cover that stuff. If you go back and watch the Market Watch videos, stuff I've done with Tony in the past on Worlds Collide, I try to mix up everything. I'm not an expert on anything, but I know a little bit about a lot. So I like to try to cover the bases from vintage, from modern, from stuff in the middle, from stuff like the Andre card that's quasi wrestling, but not like, I just like to talk about a lot of this stuff. And from the market perspective, I think I've covered that quite a bit. So, again, anybody watching who thinks that I may not be covering something, I am more than happy to take the constructive criticism. If I'm wrong on something or if I haven't covered it, please let me know, like he did. Leave a comment. But at the flip side, I would advise to check out the archives in this channel. We've got hundreds of videos at this point covering a lot of different topics. So if there's something you think that I haven't covered yet, make sure to check the archives. And then if it's not there, let me know. Now, as far as, younger wrestlers and the Topps cards, one reason that I don't talk as much about the newer wrestlers is because, like many of you out there, I don't have the connection with a lot of these newer wrestlers. Do I like LA Knight? Sure. Do I like Roman, Rhea, MJF? Absolutely. I love anytime those talents are on my screen, they are not getting the channel changed. I'm not on my phone. I'm not doing anything else. So you may ask then, why is that connection not there? And for most of you, and I'd love to hear your comments on this, a lot of us grew up in the 80s, in the 90s with the Attitude Era, maybe in the New Generation era of WWE when all that top stuff was coming out and Cena was ruling the world. That seems to be where a lot of the connection is with the talents on the cards. That is continually what I'm seeing with the hobby, is the connection that you have with the cards. Maybe, I don't know, like there's a lot of the people who are just going out and straight up collecting or buying a lot of the more modern stuff. I think it kind of teeters on that prospecting, because, like, for example, Karrion Kross, he's the only modern guy that I collect a lot of Super Collect, obviously. And I love his character even before he was in NXT, when he was in Impact and AAA wrestling on the indies. I love the character. So that's what I connect with, is that character, and that character just kind of carries over. And once again, for me, it ends up being more about the cards, the collection that I'm building out of those cards, as opposed to, what do they, when's the last time Kross has been on TV? I can't even remember. I used to try to, when I knew he was going to SmackDown, I would tune in and never miss an episode. But when I saw that he just wasn't appearing on TV very much, I'm like, okay, well, I'll just catch the highlights. And, that's one reason why I don't talk about the younger talent as much. And we've always talked about, everybody within wrestling cards talked about the connection of nostalgia, of memories, of character. Like, all those things are attached to why certain people collect certain things, or why we collect in general. And most of the audience on this channel, and most of the people I talk to, they want to talk about, 80s, 90s, early to mid 2000s. While everybody loves Rock, everybody loves Roman Reigns, everybody loves Panini stuff. It just seems like that other era is what a lot of people want to hear about and talk about. But that doesn't mean I'm going to shift my focus just to that, clearly. So I just wanted to bring up that comment. So once again, if I'm wrong on something, or if there's something I have not covered in the archives, please let me know. Leave a comment of anything in a video you see, or a response. But before any of that, make sure to check out stuff in the archives before letting me know on that. So we have another comment here, and this was from my video with Gary, Joypad live stream that we did. Let me put this up, and it is from a regular at our live streams here. Todd Bailey, can I get the card on the cover of the video? And what he is referencing, I don't think I have it pulled up here. So if you look at the thumbnail of the video I did with Gary, Joypad Lad, it is video games and wrestling cards. And what that card is from the WCW versus NWO World Tour Strategy Guide. I think I actually failed to mention this in the video when me and Gary were doing the interview. We just got to talking about all kinds of other things and it just completely slipped my mind. But I have pulled up here. So that is his comment. Now let me pull up the actual cards. Of course, we are going to WTC because they've got everything there. And we're going to go over some of these images of this set. Now, these are actually very hard to find, and this is what I'm talking about. Like on the last comment we were talking about on the video, the viewer wanted me to cover some of the younger wrestlers, some of the more modern ones. But here we have a comment going back to the older stuff, and not only older stuff, but this is a set that nobody talks about because it's really hard to find. If you go look at some of the strategy guides that are on eBay, a lot of them are not really talking about whether they have the cards in them or not, because like people, like a lot of people just didn't care about cards at the time. Some people did. Chucksters, if you're still in the chat here, let us know if you have these or if you have seen anybody with them. But let's run through some images really quick. So the designs are really not. Here's a Buff Bagwell. And I want to thanks and shout out to everybody at WTC that continues to provide this information for us. So as you can see, the border, very, very basic, primitive border, and all it is an image from the character on the video game. So there's Buff. And I forgot to flip over on the back. There's Giant. Let's click on the back. Well, so here's the Hogan that I put as the thumbnail. This is the one that Todd was saying that he wanted, which I think this is a really cool card. Again, primitive design and the pixelated image. But so here's the back of the Hogan card. As you can see, it just tells you the moves. So I think that's a different, if you're putting out a strategy guide, why not just put cards out and put the moves on them? I think it's a great idea. Let's run through the rest of these really quick, though. Nash, Luger. This is an ad. Or no, that's the cover. I think there's an ad card. Ultimo Dragon. That was a cool one. Well, if I could click on the right thing here, that would be beneficial. Sting. Let's check out the Sting one. That was like early Crow Sting. And if you guys played video games, WCW versus the World, I think, for PS1, that was also I was a huge fan of Sting's character on that one. 6, it's kind of he was popular at the time, clearly, but to put him in a card, like that's saying something. And then let's see if this title ad is actually a card. Let's look at the back of it and see what it says. Yeah, so it's a card of just the cover of the game. And there's also, I don't know if any of you know this, but there's a Blockbuster video game card set. And there's, I think, one, if not two, wrestling cards that are featured. I think that's the cover of Royal Rumble is featured on that. So I just wanted to share that with you guys since Todd brought that up. And I did not mention it on the live stream. So we covered that. And not only that, this is something I also did not know about. Most people, if you're in 64, you remember the game we were just talking about. But the game that really kind of, I think, in my opinion, set the bar for wrestling games at the time was WCW versus NWO Revenge. They took what World Tour did and just kind of built on it. And there's actually a card set that I found for that. And let me pull that up on the screen. It's very similar to my understanding. They were in the strategy guide, just like what we covered. So let me see if I can view this anymore. Yeah, the images a little bit better. I like how they're still perforated, so they came out of the magazine. But they're coming out of the entrance. Saturn, Sting, Tomato Face Sting, Fit Finlay, Raven. Raven was always one of my favorite characters. So that's pretty cool to see those on there. I've never actually seen a sheet of these. I don't know where these are. I've never seen any. Chuckster, again, let us know if you've seen these. But I think these are actually cooler than the first ones. Like, I think the designs are better. But that is the only image I could find. I think, if you can find some others, let the WTC crew know, and maybe they can get put on the website. So wanted to make sure to share those. So we've got a couple of comments here. How do you think wrestling cards for performers who switch companies will compare to each other over time? For example, Jade Cargill going from AEW to WWE has the first AEW versus PMG versus future WWE card. Very good question there. Wrestling card collectors seem to always want to go for the first, not what the market says and not what the official is. They seem to want to go for the first. Like, there's, people still say 82 All-Stars of Pick Your Wrestler is the rookie card, even though some of those wrestlers have cards before that. You could say that AJ Styles has rookie cards in the TNA stuff, but if you look at the WWE top stuff, he's got rookie card logos on it. So what are we doing? And I think that's kind of the question. I think it's going to depend on the product. So, for example, Jade Cargill, she's keeping the same name, so I don't think that really affects it. And I think it's going to come down to what we see from her WWE products. So, Top Chrome Gold, Top Chrome Superfractors, I think those are going to be on the same, if not higher level than a PMG. So, like maybe a PMG green and a Superfractor, maybe those are kind of comparable. But it'll be interesting to see, like, do they use the rookie card logo on Jade's cards when she gets them out? I don't. Going to be interesting. I really don't know, because just when I think I have the market and collectors kind of figured out on that kind of stuff, I'm wrong every single time. Or, the landscape of collecting changes. So thanks for that question. Chuckster says he does not have those video game cards. That's too bad. But thanks again for continuing to work on WTC, Chuckster, and providing those images for us. If we didn't have those images up there just now for me to share with everybody, we couldn't have really talked about them. Miami Mark's got a comment. I think it might be a problem across all cards. I think that the main demographic age is 35 to 50 for card collectors. That is something that is a great point. It's something that we grew up on, and there are younger kids that are out there collecting, but from what I've seen, people that are actually collecting are going for Pokemon, are doing Magic, stuff like that. From most of the kids that you see at card shows that I've seen in person at shows that have their Pelican cases or their backpacks full of stuff, it's all about the flip, and nothing wrong with that. I do that, but I don't see them being as attached to the cards as maybe we were growing up. And again, that goes back to that connection that I was telling you about. Connection, nostalgia. And maybe we don't have the nostalgia for an LA. He's been around for a while, but he's just now getting on to the upper echelon of WWE. Maybe we don't have that nostalgia for Roman Reigns. He's like top tier wrestler right now, but it just doesn't hit us like a Hogan, like a Sting, like Ultimo Dragon. I think Miami Mark's got a point there that it could just be an age thing, and we'll see where that goes. Todd, don't forget us in our 60s. Hey, yeah. And speaking of 60s, let's go even further back. So I've got a SGC. Yes, that's right. SGC sub coming back of I think it's 18. Is it 1888 or 1889? Chuckster, you can help me with that if you're still in the chat. The Allen and Ginter wrestler set. I think there's 7 cards in the set, and it's, the wrestlers are a subset of everybody else in the set. But to my knowledge, this is the earliest wrestling cards ever made. So when I saw those, I didn't really know much about the wrestlers at all, but I was like, these are the first wrestling cards ever made. Now, I have no connection with the talent on the cards. I don't necessarily care that it's a good investment, bad investment. That's not why I got it. I got it because I love wrestling cards, clearly. And these are the first ones ever made. So I just thought that was a cool thing. I will be doing a video probably of those when I get them back. I don't know. I sent them off in a group sub because I have a PSA subscription, but it's a little bit easier to do that than was SGC. And be asking, well, why did you send to SGC? I think these cigarette cards, the really, really old vintage stuff, I think they look so much better in SGC slabs. So that's why that I sent them off there. But let's continue. Let's go to Chuckster. You're correct. It included all different sports, not all right. Yeah, it has boxing and some maybe tennis, maybe horse racers. I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff in there, but it's a really cool set. And again, I'll do a whole video, maybe just do a live stream on those whenever I do get them back. So we're going to move on to a couple more things here. I want to promote a couple of channels because I love to promote any kind of content that I consume that I think is good or worth talking about. And this guy, he's been on speaking of archives of this channel, he's been on the channel before. And that is Tom from Collectawrestlepalooza with that very, very catchy intro song. One moment. So, Tom recently did a video talking about the true 1989 WWF Classic cards. And this is it right here. So you go watch it at your convenience here. But what he was doing is comparing some of these classic cards. And here we are again. We're a bunch of old guys talking about the 1990 Classic, a set that I say that no one cares about. If you look at this picture, a Hogan PSA 7 selling for $2. That's kind of the focus of this, but we'll get to that in a minute. But here we are, guys, talking about this card, I guess. So what he was doing is seeing if PSA is actually grading these as 1990 or 1989. And again, you can watch the video for itself. But this card is what I want to talk about. So we're looking at an 89 version. It's actually an 89 version, PSA7, which isn't good. But if you look at this card, $2, really, $2. What that brings up to me is I want to talk about auctions, and I want to talk about the change in the wrestling card landscape. So on the auctions, I would advise you, anybody watching this, if you just need to get rid of something and you want to auction it off, sure. But this is exactly what you may get. You may have your item that sells for, I mean, not only would you be taking a pay cut on this, so to speak, but you'd be taking a beating. I mean, if this sells for $2, even if you put your shipping on there, by the time you're paying your fees to eBay and whatever else, like, you're in the negative. I understand sometimes you need to move cards and take a loss to, take that money if you're running a business, or if you're into flipping, or if you're just sick of something in your collection, wanting to start collecting something else. It's okay to take a loss and then move it in here. But if you're wanting to actually sell your stuff to make money, do not run auctions unless it's just, if you're okay with selling your Hogan PSA 7 for $2, then, by all means, go for it. But the other thing I want to talk about, that this really, as soon as I saw this image, is just the wrestling card market in general. It's very, very weird. We're seeing bigger sales, bigger from 5-figure sales on a regular basis now of certain cards. But then there's this other section of cards that people claim to want. So, look at social media, look at any kind of content, whether it's something I'm doing, Tom's doing, Card Foundation, WTC, anybody that's doing any type of wrestling card content or social media. Look at what everybody posts and says is cool, and says is rare, and says is valuable. Gold, one-of-ones, refractors, animal prints, all of those sorts of things. And then products. Shiny stuff is taking a leap over kind of the stuff like this Hogan card. So my question is then, if all of that stuff is kind of the front of the community and content creators, and that's what everybody says that you should be buying, you should be investing, and you should be collecting, then why are the prices not reflecting that? And I think we're just in this weird spot overall, like just economically. Even in my eBay store, like, I've seen stuff really slow down, even on like the super low end, like base cards. People still buy them. People still buy all kinds of stuff. I mean, like I said, check out the WTC 3. I think it's called 3 Count now. They rebranded that, of going over the markets each month, kind of like I do the market wrestling card market watch on this channel. They do something similar, but they really dig, Tony and Paul really dig into the high numbers and stuff like that, as opposed to me with mine. I'm more focusing on the talking points and what it means for the broader perspective of things, maybe. But it's interesting. What do you guys think? Is it an economic thing that we're kind of stuck at, where maybe people just don't have as much discretionary income? Maybe people are still just wanting to rip wax, and it's all about, the act of opening the cards as opposed to just collecting and buying singles, stuff like that. I don't know. But I've just noticed that it seems like sales across the board, no matter what it is, except unless it's, I think recently there was it's an Andre BGS 9.5 maybe that sold for, $40-some thousand. And that's going to happen periodically. We're still seeing huge numbers on All-Stars. We're still seeing huge numbers on one-of-ones. And we're still seeing huge numbers on stuff like the WCW autographs, which that's, a whole, I'm going to stay tuned next week. We're going to be doing, speaking of the wrestling card market watch, I'm going to be talking about those. I'm going to be talking about markets, talking about gold stuff that, again, people say that we should be buying, but what's with the prices on it? So let me know what you guys think of that. Is this an economic thing? Has the we're getting more collectors, but has the pricing bubble kind of bursted on wrestling cards? Do we ever get back to where we were? Does something else kind of drive the popularity of these things? I don't know. So something to think about, and let me know what you think. So the last kind of talking point I have here, and this is has nothing to do with wrestling cards, and I want to promote another channel. I've talked about him before, and if you watch the archives of the channel, you've seen him. We interview together, and that is Bo Thompson from the William Cubs Project. So make sure to go check out his stuff. He's a real inspiration to what I'm doing right now with this live stream. He goes live every day. His mic falls over half the time. There's a lot of talk about gas station pizza. And to me, that's really fun. There's hobby talk within there. There's business talk within there. But there's also just kind of fun back and forth within the chat. And that's really what I'm trying to build here with wrestling fans and wrestling card collectors. But there's a video, and I don't remember which one it is. I was listing stuff on eBay, had his video going on in the background. And I hear this comment about a tweet that says, and I wrote it down, typed it out so I could get the quote right. I quote, this is what the tweet says: "I will never understand someone calling a $500 card a Grail card." So first off, I know what he was talking about, because I've talked about this a lot. Like, I'm on social media. I try to promote my videos, my podcasts, to try to promote other things, posting my cross cards. But with everything I have going on, I don't have time to just sit there and scroll all day. Not to mention the kind of algorithms that I've heard a lot of people talk about. A lot of stuff that, like, people I know in the community, and I love what they post. I love their questions. I don't even see their stuff at the time because of just the way that the algorithms have changed, and it's very weird. So I know the account that posted this on Twitter, and I'm not going to promote them because I don't even want to mention their name to give them that. But like, this is kind of that gatekeeping mentality that I think kind of ties into what we were talking about with people that are saying, go for the golds, go for the one-of-ones. Nobody likes base cards. Nobody set collects. Do it this way. Don't do it this way. This makes no sense. This is overpriced. This is underpriced. All that stuff. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So, quote, again, "I will never understand someone calling a $500 card a Grail card." My understanding, a Grail card is something you've been searching for a long time. So let's say that Grail card is a base card, and for some reason you just can't find it, but that's the last one you need to put in that set to complete the set. Let's say that you've been so another example I'll give is, I don't have it here handy, it's in a box over here, but I've talked about my Hulk Hogan card that I've had. It's one of the only collectibles that survived my childhood. It's got a crease in it. It graded a PSA 2, I believe. That's how beat up it is. It's a 1987 Topps, and it's one of the few things that survived my collecting throughout my entire life. And then I got it signed by him. So that, to me, would you consider that a Grail card? Because it is like one of my most important cards. That card is not worth $500. So for somebody to sit here and say this is just like complete ludicrous. The guy's a clown, and nobody needs to be telling anybody what to do when it comes to collecting stuff like this. If your Grail card is $1 and you like collecting these cards, go for it. If you like super collecting, and there's, let's say you're an MJF super collector, and let's even say you're collecting some of the cards. Ooh, I better not say that word. Somebody's going to get mad. But like, that's expensive. That's going to cost you a lot more than $500. So does that mean that, that is or isn't Grail cards? Or, I don't know. I just thought it was interesting talking point that there are people out there who, like, try to dictate what your collection is. And so, a lot of people I talk to in the wrestling card community, like, a lot of their best cards are not $500 cards, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, who cares? Who cares what your collection is worth? Who cares what you're collecting? So that's another thing that I think kind of it's that tribalism that we see that I think most people can relate to within wrestling between AEW and WWE. Like, we see that in the hobby, and it is in sports cards for sure. And this guy, again, I'm not going to mention who it is. He has talked about wrestling cards and stuff occasionally, but again, guy's a clown. I'm not going to talk about him. Not going to give him the time of day for a name. But the fact that anybody would come out and say this is just like, what are you doing? These same people that say, we want to grow the hobby, we want to 10x the hobby, and then they come out and make a comment like this, as opposed to reaching out to these people within the community and talking to them. What do you collect? Can I help you find these cards? Can we find these cards for you as the collector at a discount? What can we do? That's what's going to broaden the hobby. And to tie back to what Miami Mark was talking about the demographic, that's what we need to do with wrestling fans who are younger, is introduce them to cards, make them understand why they're important. And we all know cards are worth money, whether it's 50 cents, whether it's $50,000, cards are worth money. And I run a business. Clearly, I want to sell cards to make the money. But that being said, where we get in trouble is comments like this, and where we're focusing solely on the value for all of these cards. That's what's going to exactly what's happened with the sports card bubble right now. Is people put money first as opposed to collecting. And there's nothing wrong with flipping. There's nothing wrong with opening a store. There's nothing wrong with just being a collector and you never sell anything. But the fact that they put so much emphasis on the value of things and what is your collection worth? That's one thing that I get all the time. And I don't know that ever changes. I'll bring up a Hogan PMG, one of my favorite cards, and I'll talk about, telling the story behind it. Talking about the Hogan Australian tour, which that image was taken from, and talking about the importance of the exclusive PMG and blah, blah, blah. And some of you, what's that worth? Well, what does it matter? It's part of my collection. It doesn't matter whether it's worth 5 cents or $5 million. Even if it's worth $5 million, do I sell it? Maybe. But I can tell you that I've turned down 5 figures for that PMG card. Now, I don't think anybody would pay that right now. But again, I just wanted to bring that up because there's these. And speaking of gatekeepers, I have a podcast coming out on Monday all about we think this is something that's just within our hobby bubble of modern, vintage, do this, invest, collect, blah, blah, blah. But this actually exists in all forms of hobbies. And I've actually been part of other collecting hobbies that's this gatekeeping mentality and telling people what they can and can't do. And, their worth as a collector and their worth a community member and interacting with other people is tied to the value and not their collection and not what they bring to the hobby or what they collect, those sorts of things. So stay tuned for that. That'll be out on Monday. The podcast drops. We've got a couple more comments here. Yes, I did. I turned down a 5-figure. Now this was a year and a half ago, probably. Again, the market is not where it is now. So clearly I wouldn't get that now. But it was my Hulk Hogan Precious Metal Gems employee exclusive from Upper Deck. It's a BGS 9. My copy is. And I don't want to sell it. I've got some awesome life stuff coming up, which I can't talk about yet, but I will talk about it when the time gets there. And I needed some money just kind of in reserves for that. So I did sell my Vince and Hogan dual auto to Uncle Danny. Shout out to Uncle Danny. But, that card, and you may look at that and be like, a Vince auto? Are you kidding me? That's going to be worth so much more down the line than a PMG that's numbered to 125 of Hogan, of all people. But that Hogan PMG is just worth so much more to me in my collection at this moment than it was taking the money from I had 3 different offers that were just under 4 figures and then a couple that were in the 5-figure range. I turned them all down. I didn't need the money. I want the card. And, that's what, it's just what I like to do. I'm all over the place. I do, like to make some money off my cards, but when it comes down to it, some are just not for sale at the time. But anyway, before we get to a couple more questions here, make sure to check out 1 Million Cups Project. He's baseball centric, but again, lots of entertainment on that channel. And a huge inspiration to me. He's really helped me out with the eBay store and, been, as I said, an inspiration for doing this live stream. So, Shui, welcome again. Sorry you're late. No big deal. You come in when you can. Come and go as you can. That's what this is about. It's just a fun hangout for wrestling card collectors. Are you familiar with Panini World Cup albums? That's fun. Even Walgreens was hosting trade nights. No, I'm not. But that's I know. Are those stickers? I believe. Maybe. Let me know, Miami Mark, if that's true or not. Any kind of trade nights or just activities that you can get. Not only kids. People like, oh, we got to get kids in the hobby. but just more people in general, adults, maybe it's lapsed collectors from the 90s that need to come back. And like, clearly I sell cards, right? So I want to make money, but I'm not promoting building the hobby just so I can sell more cards, because maybe it's somebody that gets into the hobby, collects a certain way, and I can learn from them, and I can take what they're doing and apply it to cross collection, or maybe something else I'm collecting, or maybe it's the way I think or operate, stuff like that. That's the whole reason. Just building a community has been so much fun. Talk to people in group chats or Instagram chats or Twitter, whatever. It's been a real blast. So, oh yeah, you want one of those someday. If you're talking about the Hogan PMGs, yeah. All right, so we're going to end this. Thanks to everybody for stopping by. Hopefully, keep trying to do one of these a week. We'll see. If this is your first time stopping by, hit that subscribe button. Give me a like if you enjoyed this video. And again, if you're watching this on the archives, leave a comment below the video if you've got any questions, comments, and I'll get to those as I can. But thanks again for everybody stopping by. I hope you guys have an awesome day. I hope you keep collecting and having fun collecting whatever it is you're, if you don't have that $500 Grail card, oh no, you can't be part of the hobby. Get out of here. Tell that clown to hit the road. Until next time, again, subscribe. Check